just vibe out for a second. Yeah.
Welcome to the dtalks podcast.
Look at us.
Yes, welcome to the dtalks podcast.
We're here doing the thing. There we go. Perfect. I'm anticipating a perfect fade in right there for McKenna. Look at that. That's skill right there. Shout out McKenna on the intro. What's going on, D-Bags? Hope you guys are doing well. We're back here again with another episode of the dtalks podcast, episode 142, I believe. I'm here today joined with a super fun guest that I'm excited to talk to and introduce you guys to. But before I do that, I got to talk to you guys a little bit about car insurance. These days, it seems as if we're able to do more and more from home. So while you're at home, why aren't you saving money on your car insurance? Your hometown agency, Kenosha Auto Insurance, has specialized for years in simple, hassle-free car insurance using the latest in touch-free technology to help you and your family get the best rates. So what are you waiting for? Give them a call today at 262-448-4141. That's 262-448-4141. The website's kenoshains.com. One last time, that's 262-448-4141. Give them a call. Tell them Rita dtalks sent you. The worst that can happen is you will get the best rates. Now, before I jump into the episode today and introduce you guys to my guests, I also want to let you guys know that we've got another vlog coming out this Friday. We just released the one a couple days ago, and super thankful for everybody that checked that out and showing love over there. Appreciate you guys a ton. And if you're new here and you enjoy music, podcasts, comedy, hooping videos, vlogs, all that good stuff, do consider subscribing because we've got a whole lot of that stuff going on around here. And anytime you share, like, comment, anything like that, it helps us share conversations like this with more people. So consider it. Now, with all that good stuff out of the way, I'm pumped to introduce you guys to my guest this week. She's a talented singer, songwriter, Kalyn Harewood. Thank you for being here, dog.
You're welcome.
Look at that. We got the clapping in the studio. I appreciate it. Of course. Now, I introduced you as a singer-songwriter. Obviously, you're a whole lot more than that. You know,
Thanks,
multifaceted human being and things of that nature. But when it comes to music, the arts, songwriting, and whatnot, you literally have a degree.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
How-
Not in songwriting, but in performance.
In performance
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
So, how do you go about, like, what's the conversations between peers, maybe family, whatever? Because I feel like art degrees get a lot of shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, how do I go about a conversation?
Like,
with
how
family?
did you decide, I guess? And is there like
Well, I think I just had to go to college. That's how my parents were. It was like you go to college or like you're kicked out, basically. Well, I mean, I guess it was kind of the same thing for my mom because it was sort of like go to college so that you're not at home anymore. Because my parents are those parents that, like, when you turn 18, you're kind of like pushed out of the nest, so to
you're
speak.
done, yeah.
Yeah, so I was just like, what am I going to do? Because I really don't enjoy, like, or what do I enjoy the most that I could, like, actually dedicate 4 years of my life to learning? So that's why I decided performance.
Wow, so there's, like, no other thing in your mind. You're like, that's it.
No. And sometimes I, like, think about it, like, that I should find, I guess, like, something that was more, that I could create, like, more of a career out. I don't even want to say you can't create a career out of it, but something that would be easier to create a career out of. But I just wanted to do something that I enjoyed for 4 years and not, like, hate my life.
Yeah. Well, props to you for being able to do that, because there's a lot of people that there's a lot of, like, external pressures, I feel like, on people that want to do arts. Even I took just a few things of, like, art stuff, like acting and things like that in college, music theory and stuff like that. And people are like, what are you doing taking, like, because I'm in marketing and things like, what are you doing taking acting? What are you doing whatever. And there's like, what are you going to do with that?
I think I just, like, I really wanted to learn more about music. I didn't really know a lot, which was something that was intimidating going into college, like higher education, knowing about music, because I feel like when I went into college, I didn't know how to, like, I didn't know what a single note was on the piano besides maybe middle C. I could barely really read music. Most of the time I just got by, like, learning things by ear, because you can kind of do that in high school, or at least most high schools that aren't, like, super serious about music. But
so you're pretty clean slate going in.
Yeah, super clean slate. And I just wanted to, like, learn. I was like, if I have to learn more about something, it might as well be something that I, like, enjoy. And then I kind of just went from there.
Is it scary, like, in classes? Because I mean, maybe there isn't where you went to Parkside, right? Are there kids that are, like, or I should say young adults, I guess, that are in the classes that are, like, super far ahead and they just have to take the intro class and you're just like, shit, dude,
I think, like, I actually took rudiments of music, which is before you even get into music theory 1, and most people go into theory 1 right away. And I think also most of the kids in my class had taken like AP theory classes in high school, which we weren't. I mean, I think now Wilmot offers it, but
Oh, really? Yeah,
yeah.
that was definitely not a
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah. No,
when we
because
were
I
there.
wish it was, right?
Yeah.
But it was so intimidating. And actually, my first, or was it? Yeah, going into my second semester, I dropped out and was going to be a theater major for like, it was like a week decision. And I decided I was just going to become a theater major because theory was so hard. And then I was like, no, I can't do this. Like, I literally switched my decision within like, it was within a week that I was just
a
going back
roller
and forth.
coaster of like,
Yeah,
nope,
yeah, yeah. I
I'm
had
done.
signed like all the change of major papers and everything.
Damn.
And like, I was reading Hamlet because it was a required lesson that we had to read, or a required like play that we had to read for one of the classes I was going to take in the theater major. And I think I read some line about like being yourself. I don't know, it sounds so cheesy, but then I just like started crying and I was like, no, I have to do music, like, you know, as hard as it is. And then I just had to basically like work my butt off to at least be at a level to where everyone else was.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first off, I want to just say like props to you on the stuff that I have seen you like post on social media
Yeah.
when it comes to like your music and your art. Like it is fantastic.
Thank
So you should be proud
Thanks.
of it.
Thank you.
I'm curious too, like with the knowledge that you have now and seeing you post stuff and writing songs and stuff like that and the progression. How do you feel about posting art in general on social media?
It's hard. I'm not like, I mean, I feel like anybody would tell you I'm not active on social media like at all. I feel like maybe I post lately anyways, the past few years, like once a year I'd been posting.
Damn,
and then
yeah.
I took like this music business class at Parkside, and we like got into a conversation about like nowadays you just have to have a social media presence. Most people anyways have to have a social media presence to kind of like make it in the art industry because that's where everyone sees everything.
Yeah.
So I think I need to start trying to be better because I definitely haven't been. But
That's
yeah.
an interesting class, music business. They
Yeah.
had that.
yeah. James, I don't know if he still teaches it, but Sadke teaches it, and he's a crazy cat. Like he's an awesome jazz musician, but he's also like a really good teacher, and he taught me so much stuff.
What do they get into in a class? I'm curious as somebody who
Pretty much
does
everything.
music.
What's cool about him is like he has a lot of different businesses. He used to own one of the music shops around here. I can't remember what it's called, but it closed down during COVID. But he also has his own private studio that he teaches out of his house. So he kind of talks about all of the like law that goes into things and all of the permits you need to apply for if you're going to start like a private studio at your house or if you're going to open up a music studio. And it's like really, really hard stuff. So it was like super intimidating to learn about, but he's a super knowledgeable guy.
Wow, yeah. That would be an interesting class for people. I mean,
Yeah.
super specific to musicians that want to make money and do this for their life, but that's really cool.
I feel like any major, it should have been, to me, it should be required for like any music major in general, but it was only required for the contemporary commercial track, which was the track I was a part of.
Holy shit, that's hyper specific as well. How many
Yeah.
different like music?
It's less classically focused. So like you start out classically focused. Everyone does like their freshman year. Like for singers, we have to like sing a certain amount of classical pieces and sing them at these things called juries. And then as you get into it, if you get accepted into the track at a jury, which is like basically where you sing a few selections of pieces and then like you have this judging panel that decides, okay, she can be a performance major or she can't. And then after that, yeah, it's
that's
like
really
it's crazy.
intimidating.
yeah. And then if you get accepted into it, you get to start kind of like deciding what music you want to sing. So you can, like that, and that's the only track where you can really sing like mostly popular music if you wanted to, or mostly contemporary styles as opposed to classical.
What are they judging you on in those juries?
Technique, and I think it's technique mostly. Obviously there's like personal bias. I feel like when you're listening or like watching any kind of art, there's like so much bias involved, which is why I kind of like hated the juries, because it's like, I don't know, but at the same time there are like, you can tell the difference between a person who practices and a person who doesn't. So I guess it's just sort of to be like, did you practice? Did you do your work? Yeah.
Okay. Is it like, because it's performance, right? So are they judging you more so off like how well you can hit notes, how well you can sustain, or is it like that as well as like stage presence, like the way you move? Are you doing stuff like that as well? Or?
Less stage presence and more like technical, like vocal stuff. And it goes the same with pretty much any instrument that's on a performance track. So yeah.
Wow. That would be. That's
intimidating.
That is. That's kind of scary.
That's like our version of finals.
Yeah. So who's on the jury then?
Your
like teachers?
Your teacher, like your individual lesson teacher, and then the rest of the faculty. So for like the singing students. It was like your voice lesson teacher, your private lesson teacher, and then the choir director, and then the other private voice lesson teachers, whoever they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's people that know what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's,
And then
that's
you just
very
like
scary.
go in and
What did you sing for one? Is there any?
I'm trying to think of like what I don't know what I sang, or my first year I had to sing classical music. So I think the first song I ever sang in a jury was Amarilli Mia Bella, which is like this Italian song that was like crazy. I mean, it was a super cool song, but it's just like not my, it was cool to like learn that style of music, but
Yeah.
I don't know that I would do it. And then I think the latest one that I sang, or like in my last jury that I sang that I liked, would be Hold On. I got super into like Negro spirituals,
Okay.
because it's like, it's sort of where like gospel bridges classical music, and it's like slave songs that they would sing like in the fields or whatever, and basically they were arranged, and they're just like so pretty. So yeah, that was one of my favorites.
Wow, that's a big jump though. Like
Yeah.
two very different
Yeah,
styles.
yeah. I think that's what I really enjoyed about it, was like hearing places my voice could go that I didn't like realize it could go.
Mhm.
I think that's what other people hate about it, is like most of us grow up, I think, listening to pop music, unless your parents really like enforce classical music on you.
Yeah.
I feel like most of us listen to like popular music or more contemporary styles, and that's what I grew up listening to. So I think getting into college and then sort of being like given this entire new like palette of colors that my voice
Yeah.
could go to was really, really cool.
Is it tough to get out of like a box? I feel like, I mean, you mentioned that you were pretty relatively like a blank slate going
Yeah.
into college when it came to like learning all this stuff technically. But you obviously you did stuff in high school and you were probably
Yeah.
singing your whole life.
Yeah.
Was it tough to like, you're singing one way maybe your
Yeah.
whole life and then realize like, okay, wait,
Yeah.
I can be doing these things.
Yeah, I think at first it was really hard, because it like I had to like practice so much just to get my voice to like do that or to sing in a certain style.
Yeah.
I feel like the specific example, and I won't get like so into it, but the specific example that I feel like everyone thinks when they think like pop singing or contemporary singing is like belting out a note, like Demi Lovato, like that's basically how she sings. She
Yeah.
like belts, you know? And like that's what we all want to do. That's what I went into college. I was like, oh, I just want to like be a belter. And then what they teach you like in classical music is singing in that same range, but singing like what's called like a mixed voice. You have like different parts of your voice, and it's called a mixed voice. And it's sort of like that like kind of I guess like sort of that like really open mouthed thing when you think of classical music. And it's hard to kind of switch your voice, especially when you've been doing it for so long in a certain way, to singing that way. But I think that's what's fun about it, is it was like challenging, and then once you get to it, it's like
Just more tools for
yeah,
you to use.
yeah, exactly.
in
It's
your
like a
own
whole
music.
new world.
What, like, so, I mean, you were singing your whole life, I imagine. Like, were you trained singer, or were you just
No.
like, oh, I just enjoy?
That was what was intimidating too.
Okay.
No, not at all. I just like liked singing for the most part. I think I kind of like gave up on it when like I started playing basketball, because like then my whole life was just basketball.
Mhm.
And then in high school, I just like hated high school basketball.
Yeah.
So I quit and like joined theater, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And
Mhm.
then I decided to take choir. I think it was, I don't know if it was my junior or senior year. No, I think it was just senior year. I decided to join the choir, and I just like super enjoyed it. And then I was like, oh, I've barely been doing this. Like, am I really ready to commit 4 years of my life to just like learning this and trying to be good at it at the same time?
Yeah, that's an intimidating decision in and
Yeah.
of itself. It's interesting hearing you talk about it. So did you have any like, was the way you were singing growing up and like expressing yourself, obviously not being like super trained,
Yeah.
did that clash with like, did you learn like, oh, maybe I'm not singing correctly, or are there certain things I'm not doing the right way, like as you got into it? Because I'm just asking, because I recently just started vocal lessons like
Yeah.
a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And that was the case where it was like I had no idea how to
Yeah.
sing. And even right now I can hear myself like I'm speaking somewhat incorrectly because I'm
Me
kind of
too.
rolling my
Mhm.
and it's not good, and
Yeah.
I've been getting yelled at for it, as I should be.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, what was that like for you? Because for me, it's been an interesting challenge.
I think it was definitely hard just to learn how to sing correctly and like be okay with what my voice sounded like when I was singing correctly. Because I think growing up, I like didn't really listen. Well, I feel like people always have like a stereotype of what like black singers should sound like. And like I was guilty of it too. I feel like I thought that I should sound one way, like sort of like that gospel, like really beautiful, like I'm trying to think of a good example of like a gospel singer. I don't know. But anyways, I feel like I like really I really wanted to like sound that way.
Yeah.
And I think that was the hardest thing for me to get out of. And then as I grew up, I started to listen to more primarily like sort of white indie singers like Dodie. I love Dodie, and like I'm trying to think of who else. Dodie was the biggest one, and then I wanted my voice to sound like that. And I think the hardest thing for me was finding my own voice and being like happy with what that sounded like, or being like just coming to a place of like acceptance with like what my voice sounded like instead of trying to sound like so many others. That was like the biggest lesson I learned in voice lessons. Is it was just like, I feel like one of my voice teachers told me, and I hated him at first for saying it, but then like now I kind of really appreciate it. He was like, you know, like your voice is Kalyn's voice, and it's not gonna sound like these like indie white singers, or like, you know what I mean? It's just gonna sound like what it is. And I think it was coming to like accept that and be okay with just what my voice was, you know?
Yeah.
Because we all want to sound like somebody. We all have like
We grow up listening to people.
Yeah.
Even
And
now,
like,
I'm listening
it's so
to people.
cool. I want to sound like that, and like, so you try to make your voice sound like that, and yeah.
That's where you can run into problems.
Yeah, and that's where you can like have technical problems because your voice isn't meant to sound like that.
Yeah. No, it's that's something that I've been learning recently, and it's really interesting. And I think maybe people that are like, what are these people talking about right now that aren't into like vocal shit specifically are like, you know, what is the importance of this? And it's just, I guess, to make like an analogy, it's almost if you were playing a sport like one way your whole life, like you were trying to play or shoot, like if you're basketball, for instance, we were talking about basketball earlier. If you're trying to shoot exactly like LeBron James, and you know you're 5'5", short white guy, his form probably not the best form for you.
Yeah, totally.
Like it probably isn't. Like he's got a little side like dip in his elbow. Yeah. He can do that. He's 6'8". You know, he can. 240. You know, doesn't have to lift weights if he doesn't want. He can do that.
For sure.
You can't, and you have to be able to adjust, right? So it's like, I think that part of that has been an interesting challenge for myself, and I'm sure, you know, for other people as well that are learning. Yeah. What was like an epiphany moment maybe for you in either singing or just in general when it came to music? Because I mean, you went to school for it.
I think it was actually that, like when that teacher told me, because at the time I'd been listening so much to Dodie for sure, and I forget her name. She's another singer that's like opening for Dodie right now on her tour. But like I just wanted my voice to like. I kept adding, I guess, like sort of like a rasp to my voice, and I really just wanted it to sound like it fit in this genre. And I think that was like the biggest realization, was that like I don't have to fit in a genre. Like I don't have to be pop, I don't have to be folk, I don't have to be jazz, you know. I can just like be what I am. And it was like I think it was only about a year ago that I'd like realized that, or decided that, because I feel like it's totally a decision. Like you have to like choose to do this and to just like be okay with who you are. And I think that was the biggest epiphany for sure. So
who are the artists that maybe growing up that your parents were playing around the house and that inform you? Okay,
gospel and like Christian music. It was only like Hillsong is like a big Christian sort of like, they call it like CCM, which is contemporary Christian music, and then Kirk Franklin. And yeah, it was just gospel and Christian music that I listened to. I wasn't allowed to listen to like worldly music, as my parents would say.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Worldly music. That's an interesting term. I like that.
Yeah, my dad's a pastor, and I wasn't even allowed to like watch Harry Potter, anything that was like even remotely, I don't even know. Just my parents were
not in the vein of like religion. Okay. Yeah. Wow. So as you're being exposed to then pop, I mean, you get to high school, it's kind of hard to like not. You go to a dance, you're not gonna. Wild, no. There's none of that shit gonna be, you know. So like, who are maybe some people that like super popular that were influencing you throughout like maybe your high school formative years?
High school, I was really into Passenger.
He got a cool voice.
That's the thing. I love like those unique voices. I love like just like when you hear it and you're like, you've never heard it before. It's just so cool. Yeah. I got super into like Passenger, and like that was when I like got into like the folky sort of acoustic style stuff. I wouldn't say I was ever super into pop. I listened to the stuff they played at dances, because like you got to know that. Yeah. But that was pretty much about it.
That's fair. So what is your degree technically in then?
The one that I currently have is in music performance with an emphasis in contemporary commercial music.
Okay. Yeah. And you are still in school, correct? Like you're going to get a master's degree?
Yeah, an MFA, a Master of Fine Arts.
what does that even mean? What does that give you the power to do?
I don't know that it gives me the power to do. Well,
What is
actually, it, like, if I went to school, I think it's like the cooler way of going to school to be able to teach like at a collegiate level.
Okay. Because you teach now too, right?
Yeah, but I just teach like voice lessons.
Okay.
But that was my original intent in doing it. I don't know if that's still what I want to do, but if you have that piece of paper, you can teach in a college. So
that's fair.
Yeah.
So but now even teaching now,
Mhm.
like after you've kind of had to go through all the training yourself.
Yeah.
What's like the biggest challenge in trying to train new people? How old people do you train?
Pretty much any age. I think my youngest student, I want to say maybe like 10 or 12, and then my oldest student probably around like 40, 45.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's like the most difficult thing for newcomers to figure out?
I think, well, the most like difficult is probably when I get adult students, because adult students have had so much time
To develop bad habits.
Yeah, to develop so many bad habits, and it's like getting them to recognize that and doing it in a way that's like nice, like not like your shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
sorry, can I say that? Like,
Yeah. Oh, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, but like doing it in like a nice way, that doesn't seem like you're like talking down to them or being condescending,
Mhm.
and just getting them to recognize those habits and be able to change them. I guess I feel like a big one actually is like the continual theme throughout this is like adult students like having a particular influence and then wanting to sound exactly like that influence, and getting them to just like kind of figure out where their voice is and navigate that.
Yeah.
I have one student who's like probably one of my best students. He's like super awesome. And I think the biggest problem that we've encountered is that he like always wants to sound like these other singers, but he has such a cool, like such an amazing voice and is like very technically sound. But it's just like, I feel like I always just try to get students to like be happy with their own voice, because I think that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
How can one become
happy.
happy with their own voice? Because that sounds like it was something you had to overcome,
Yeah.
and it seems like a common theme that people
Yeah.
struggle with.
I think recording was a super helpful like tool to do that, just like singing and like playing it
I
back.
feel like some people that might be worse.
It's hard. I think it's like hard to listen to yourself, especially the first time. I have a student that just started recording himself and was like, he came back and he's like, I'm gonna be honest, it was awful.
Yeah.
I was like, I know. And he was like, but it was helpful, like to be able to like the things that I hear and maybe tell them that they can't just hear when they're singing.
Oh,
It was helpful for them to be able to like recognize it and then, you know, figure out how to change it.
Well, yeah, even the way like our voices work, like sound. I think I sound one way
Yeah,
right now, but I'm here.
That's what I
You're
always
over
say.
there hearing it, so
Yeah.
it's like, well, now let me flip that
Yeah,
and
yeah,
hear
yeah.
it. Yeah. So
Whenever students are like try to push back, I'm like, but you got to understand, like the way that you sound to me is not how you sound in your head. Like you probably sound awesome in your head. I sound awesome in my head all the time, you know, and then I record and I'm like, that's awful, you know.
Damn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta retake that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What? So I guess in teaching people, what have you learned? I guess that school maybe didn't teach you in teaching people anything.
Definitely a lot, but I feel like the biggest thing is like, I think encouragement goes like so, and it sounds so cheesy, but I feel like positive encouragement goes so further than negative encouragement, because I feel like a lot of times in college, like the most negative stuff is the only stuff that would stick with me versus the positive stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like people dwell so much on the negative instead of like just finding the positive stuff, and that I think that helps you find your voice when you like focus on the positive parts of your voice that you like, and then start to develop those and grow those, as opposed to like just telling someone all of the bad things about them or about their voice.
Yeah, I think
and I guess you come to lessons to like get critiqued, but you know, I don't think it's just that.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
I think that's good for every aspect of life. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you have to. I've been if you're a leader of a team, even if you're not a leader of any sort of team or in a workplace or anything like that, like it's just, if you want you want to get the best out of people, they need to know that, you know, you care about them at least on some
Yeah, for
level. So
sure.
it's like, you know, if you're telling them what you did, like if what they did there was incorrect, it was bad. If you go, man, you suck, like this is
Yeah.
terrible, like you can't do it this way, you need to do it this way, without being like, you know, hey, I know you did your best, whatever,
Yeah.
but we got to try it this way. Like
Yeah.
there are ways to talk to people. So maybe communication would be
Mhm.
something you've learned from
Yeah,
teaching
yeah.
people.
I think that was the hardest thing in like college, because of how like classes work and how we have like juries, and I hate even that they're called juries. Like you're
That's
literally put on
judging,
trial.
yeah,
like
yeah.
you know what I mean? And I feel like that's the biggest thing was like you just get the sheet of all of the bad things that you did, And like there's some good, right? But like it's mostly all of the technical like bad things that you did. So then I feel like that gets implanted into your head that you constantly need to just be critiquing instead of like, and it takes away like what makes music enjoyable in the first place.
That's what I was going to ask you about with like learning music to the extent that you have, and especially on the singing performance side, and having these people critique you in these ways. Does it take, you know, some of the magic of, because music is this beautiful thing that like it's crazy that humans figured it out to even have this thing and share this thing. And I feel like at least some friends of mine that I had that were in like deep music theory courses that were in grads or graduating in that stuff. Sometimes we would have conversations about like songwriting even, and they would be like, they wouldn't even know where to start on a certain, like, cause it wasn't to the point where they had no inspiration, but it was like they were so burnt out on like all the technicality of like, well, this note should be this way or this bridge should look like this. To where like they didn't even enjoy their own songs, and they weren't able to like write anything that they were like they loved or that they were passionate about. Yeah,
I think it definitely that was a huge struggle for me, especially over quarantine, because I feel like it was just like me realizing I feel like when I write music, I get the most inspiration from just like hearing other music or like going to different places, and that's usually how I like write a song. I just try to like write a story about where I am or the specific circumstance. But I think in quarantine, I didn't have that. So it was basically me just relying on all I'd learned. But then it becomes so hard to like not overcomplicate things, especially when I got into like jazz theory, which I love. Like I took like this improv class and like took a couple more because I thought it was so cool and it opens up a whole new world. But then it became hard to like separate all of that from what I actually like first off, or like what just comes out of me naturally first off, and then just like not try to overcomplicate it with all of these theoretical ideas, as opposed to just like before, like in high school, I would just like sit in my room and play my guitar and fiddle around until I found something I liked, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes I find that like people get a very like analytical, almost mathematical approach to music, and there's like fun in that like, oh, like you can make it work. Like you know who Jacob Collier is or whatever.
I love Jacob Collier.
He's super
but
funny,
he's wild.
But he's fucking crazy. But sometimes I hear him talking, I'm like, man, I gotta
it's a lot.
I gotta shut this off because it's gonna fuck with me. I'm gonna go and record something and I'm gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna be depressed.
About Jacob, because I feel like I had the exact same thing. I actually have tickets to go see him that me and my friend bought last year, but like COVID stuff, so he's coming back. I can't remember. I think it's in May, but anyways, I was like obsessed with him when I first heard his stuff because I was like, this is so cool. It fuses so many genres, which is what I love.
It's crazy, yeah.
But I think I was like, I got into this whole mode of I have to be this super crazy musical genius and know everything that I'm playing all the time, which he does.
Yeah.
And like, I think it just like put a huge roadblock up for me with just writing things organically and like how I write them. Like maybe that's how he writes stuff and it's dope, but how I write stuff is just as valid. How anybody writes something is just as valid, even if you don't like know what you're playing. You know?
I think it's tough too with, especially now, maybe more than past. I'm sure, you know, comparison was tough then too, but with social media and trying to like post your own art or music, whatever it is, and you're being exposed to all these different artists and all these different things all the time. It's tough to not like compare yourself and be like, shit, like this guy Jacob is posting his music on the same platform I'm posting that. What does anyone have an incentive to listen to my, like what is my art worth if this guy can do this? And I've definitely gotten there. I've definitely been in that space mentally, but it's not healthy. You have to know you and try to.
I think I got like to a point too where it was like an even more unhealthy relationship where I was like, oh, I just don't want to listen to anything anymore because anything I listen to is just gonna like make me think that I'm not as good as that, you know, anything I like that I listen to. And I went through like a couple months where I just wouldn't listen to music because it would just frustrate me that much. It would
any music or only
any music. I just wouldn't listen to any music. Oh
my god.
I don't even think I think I stopped writing too. I was just like, so god. It was like such a toxic. I always talk about that. I feel like I was talking to my fiance about it earlier, like how much of a toxic relationship I got in with music. I feel like it's literally just like if I had a boyfriend or girlfriend, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to listen to anything or like write anything because I was like, well, nothing I write is going to be as good as the stuff I hear. I don't know how to make it sound like that, you know? And I think it's just coming to a point of like being able to like offload everything I hear and like use specific aspects of everything. Cause like nothing really is original anymore, but just using like specific aspects of the music I like or figuring out what I like that like about that music or that's within that music, and kind of trying to implement it in mine.
Well, and the thing too, well, like you were even mentioning with like people's voices and stuff like that, and doing what you do, when it comes to like maybe even the consumer aspect of it, which it does suck that I think I was actually just complaining about this to somebody the other day, that the consumer aspect of like art, especially music, definitely drives, maybe more than we would like to have it drive, but drives what is out there right now.
Yeah,
People are trying to
100%.
make songs, chasing hits, chasing whatever. I do it. We all do it.
Yeah.
Like it happens.
Yeah.
But it's interesting with the comparison game where just like you were talking with people and finding their own voices, you're not competing with anybody if you're just doing what you want to do. Like
100%.
your influences, regardless of how popular some of them may be, there's going to be those fringe ones that like maybe if someone's influenced by Kanye, Jacob,
Yeah.
somebody else, like some 3-4 random people, like sure, those people have tons of fans, but
Yeah.
how many people are fans of all those different people and have this specific perspective on
Yeah,
life? And when you
period.
do that, that's when you
Mhm.
find where your lane is. And some
Yeah.
kid, is going to be scrolling TikTok being like, damn, I wish I could make a song
Yeah.
like this guy, or
That's
and
the
so
hope. Yeah.
maybe one day. I don't want anyone to feel sad about it, but I
No,
would
no,
I would
no.
enjoy maybe somebody being like, wow, that guy's good.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
That would feel good.
Well, I listen to your stuff and I think that I'm like, wow, that guy's
Really?
good. Yeah, especially your latest one. Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
of course.
It's music in general. I think like the creation of music sometimes, and when you mentioned like having that time where you weren't listening to anything else, I know I went through a phase similarly. I can't not listen to music though.
Yeah.
Like I was only listening to music I was working on.
Mhm.
And sometimes I still do that on like when I have like deadlines, I have to like
Yeah.
finish mixes and stuff. I'm only listening to the same 4 songs over and over again
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
got to pick them apart, but it definitely like can bog you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Just on like when you're like not allowing those things that make you, because the people you listen to, the places you listen to it
Mhm.
at, those all inform the music you're going to make. And so if you
Mhm.
strip all that away, it's like you're just like this zombie trying to plug melodies into a machine, and it's
100%,
like, oh,
yeah.
how good can it be when it
Yeah.
comes out?
Speaking of, this is like slightly off topic, but I was just reminded of, have you ever heard of Bobby McFerrin? He's the dude that did Don't Worry, Be Happy. He does like a little like acapella version of it.
Okay.
It's a pretty popular one, but anyways, he's super cool. You should check him out. He also he has like this super cool vocal technique. I don't know what it is, but like very few people can do it, where he can like separate different parts of his voice and sing multiple notes at the same time, and it's not even overtones. It's literally just like singing different notes at the same time.
How does
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
how the fuck does that work?
I don't know, but I was listening to him like talk one time. I hope it's Bobby. I hope I'm getting the name right. I'll check it out after this. But I was listening to him talk one time, and he said he went an entire year just not listening to anything, so that like literally not like basically hibernated and listened to nothing, so that he could create music that was like authentically his own. I don't think I could do that, but I thought it was just a cool idea, like for
Yeah.
someone to do, so that like literally almost everything he produced afterward would just be like something that was organically like just what came out of him.
I mean, if that worked for him, good.
Yeah,
good
yeah,
for
exactly.
Him. Good
Right.
for
I
him.
don't think it would work
yeah,
for
not
me,
for
but,
me.
Yeah.
It's hard even for me to like picture not being able to listen to music every day, because like I'll even when I'm at work and there's no music on, I'm not listening to music, I'm like humming something. If
Mhm.
I'm not humming something that already exists, I end up like humming a melody that I
Yeah.
like, and I'm like, oh shit.
Oh
real
yeah,
quick.
let me write that.
And I gotta
period.
like voice memo
Yeah,
it real
yeah.
quick, and
Yeah.
and it's like, so I'd have to go home and listen to that, or go
Mhm.
home and listen to something. Like I wouldn't be able to go without music. Aside maybe from music, what is there anything else that informs or like is that you're close to as passionate about as you are music?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know if that's good or bad, really.
I don't think that's bad.
Yeah, I really don't think. I feel like music's just like again, cheese, but like I feel like it's like a universal language, and it translates into so many things. And I think there are other things. Well, I don't know. No, I feel like music's just it, and I try
It
to
is.
use music like in other ways, whether it's like politically or I don't know. I feel like music's just like my way of speaking.
Well, when you write songs, you mentioned that you're writing, oftentimes like just about where you are or
Mhm.
whatever specific circumstances you're in. How do you filter maybe something that is like, oh, that was kind of a goofy idea, or I want to develop this into a song? Like, how
Yeah.
do you have a lot of ideas, or are you someone that like you kind of wait till they come to you? How does it
Yeah,
work?
I have a ton of voice memos of just like random stuff that I should probably organize one day. But I feel like it usually just like usually when I write a song, it's just like the whole song that day. So it's just like an entire idea that I just try to get out. And that's usually how I know whether or not it works. Because I feel like the smaller ideas that I might have just don't end up becoming anything. And I try to like work on things in days from start to finish. That's just kind of how I am. But yeah, I think it's usually just whatever I end up finishing in that amount of time is kind of like what I try to work more on.
Yeah, no, I have a similar process where it's very much like I'll have however many a batch of songs I'm working on at a time, and then it's like the ones that get done are the ones I really like, and there might be ideas of those other ones that I like still, but I'll probably end up taking that and it'll be a part of a new song somewhere, but it won't end up being that. And it's interesting how different. It's just cool how different people go about creating their own things, different things. Well, how would you? I know you mentioned that you don't really have like, you don't have to be in a genre of music. How would you describe?
Yeah, if I had to.
Because people listening to this that maybe don't know who you are probably like, okay, these guys are talking music, whatever. What does she have for us? What can we hear?
I feel like I would just say like singer-songwriter with like jazz influences. Yeah.
I can definitely hear that.
Yeah. I feel like, and I think that was like a cool discovery that was hard to discover, and I wish I discovered it sooner. But that I didn't have to, like, that my music didn't have to sound like anything, and I just call it singer-songwriter. Like when people ask, because it's just like me writing a song. But I think like that's something that like but people don't talk about enough, that you don't, and I guess it's becoming more of a thing now. Like with Jacob Collier, I don't even know what I would call his genre most of the time.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But not that I consider myself like even close to him, but I feel like it's just singer-songwriter with some jazz influences, soul maybe.
I think it's hard too for that's why I kind of asked it. I think it's hard for artists in general to like put themselves in a box, because it's like, I don't want to tell you that, oh, I make rap music. Like, I don't want to tell you that, because then
you're like, wait,
well, wait, there's this thing going on, this thing. Or if I come out with something that isn't that, you're gonna be like, wait, what's going on, bro? You said, so I think it's hard, and it's hard too, because it's like, it's almost the same thing as when you're teaching people to sing and they're hearing their voice in here and not out here, where it's like you can see it clear, like you can see it for what it is. When you're the person creating the art, it's a little bit harder to see it for what it is, because it's like you're in there, in your case, finishing this thing for hours at a time, just start to finish, and it means this special thing to you, and other people are just like, play, okay, do I like it? Okay, cool, yes or no, I don't, like whatever, and that's it.
I think like in college, it was like, that was the hardest thing for me, because I was writing so many, and I still feel like I write like so many different, like each of my pieces is like so different from the other. Like when I was writing for like a jazz ensemble that we have at school, I feel like my stuff was like way more abstract and a bit more like not like harmonies that you'd normally hear, and then like when I'm writing, I don't even know, I feel like it just depends on the day, really, like what my intent is or what I'm feeling that day. And so much of my music, or not so much of it, every song I feel like is so different, and I don't even know, that's why I don't know how to classify it into one thing.
When did you write your first song?
Like ever?
Yeah.
I think it was, well, I feel like I wrote a lot of fragments of songs, but like fully completed song was probably in high school, and I actually sang it at the talent show.
Man.
That was
a talent show.
Was that our, oh yeah, that was, I can't remember if it was our like sophomore or junior year, but I sang it at the talent show. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember, because I remember
an original piece.
That's
ballsy.
Yeah,
it was scary.
It was really, really scary, and also like I think that was like another thing I didn't mention, but I have had like the worst stage fright. I still kind of do, but I just know how to compartmentalize it a little better, and like learning technical stuff helps with that, just to be able to like ground myself and be like, okay, I might forget what I did when I performed, but like I performed.
Yeah.
But I think in high school it was so hard to manage, and even like when I got off the stage, I was just like in tears. And it wasn't like it wasn't because it was a bad performance or anything. It's just like so much pressure,
Yeah.
But I was glad I did it, because I feel like if I hadn't have done that, I probably like wouldn't have like continued on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, especially at a high school talent show, that could go one of two ways.
Yeah, it was just me and my guitar, and it was a good time though. I think there was like, I just wanted to get it out in the world,
And so you play guitar as well. Do you play guitar and piano then?
Yeah, piano, like I wouldn't consider myself like super advanced, but definitely just basic chords.
You can play
teach,
pop songs. And
Yeah,
shit,
yeah. I taught beginner piano for a little bit, so.
Okay, well
Yeah.
if you could teach it,
Well,
then
like
you fucking know.
that's why I say beginner.
You still know though.
That's
like,
why. Yeah, I know the mechanics of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's crazy. That what if for somebody, and I'm asking this not this for some imaginary person,
Yeah.
for myself.
Yeah.
What would be like advice that you can give to, obviously I'm asking for me, but for other people too, so we can give some people some value.
Yeah.
Like just a tidbit of knowledge from all the stuff you've learned when it comes to like singing in general, aside from finding your own voice. What's like a technical thing that a lot of people maybe right off the bat are doing wrong usually?
I think like the biggest thing that I have to correct people on most of the time, especially people that like come from the pop world, is like when you sing higher, people tend to like jut their chins out, which is like what you see a lot of pop stars sing, or a lot of pop stars sing that way, and that like creates more tension, because when you sing higher, your vocal cords are stretched further, and so when you like jut your chin out, it just stretches them even more and puts more tension on them, which is why a lot of people like Sam Smith and Adele will have like, because they belt when they sing.
Yeah.
And I think just like doing that improperly and putting more tension on your vocal cords versus relaxing them, I guess. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's like a maybe one of the biggest myths, or maybe something that people misunderstand about learning to sing, or learning maybe anything musically?
I think breathing. I feel like breathing is like probably like 50% of like or like holds like 50% of importance when you sing, and I think it's like neglected so much. People don't think about how you should breathe, and I feel like most of the time when I usually like in my first lesson, I'll like go through like breathing techniques and then do warm-ups and stuff like that. But when I talk about breathing, most of the time people say that like when you breathe, your chest should come up, because that's, I feel like, especially in little kids, you see it all the time, like when they're trying to take a deep breath. Yeah. But it's all supposed to go into your abdomen area, because jutting your chest out like this just creates even more tension. And the whole point of, I think, or the whole point of like teachers in general, when they're teaching, I feel like singing specifically, is to create less and less tension in the body, so that your voice can just do what it's naturally supposed to do. And that goes back into like helping people find their voice. Like when you're at your most relaxed state and you're singing, like what does that sound like? What does your voice sound like?
You shouldn't be trying to sing necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like getting to that point where you don't have to like try. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And that's, I know for myself, even learning from my vocal teacher, one thing that she talked about is a lot of singers will do facial expressions and these things, like they're dressing it up, they're adding little flavors and stuff like that. She's like, you shouldn't be making anything, like trying to make anything happen with your voice up here, or like anywhere else on your body.
It's gonna do nothing for you.
It's not doing it's not helping you. It's if you're trying to make a noise with this, it's not gonna work. Creating more
and that's
tension.
where it kind of becomes like a mind game too. I feel like a lot of it's mental too. Just like getting yourself to think about singing differently and think about like what is happening in your body when you sing. I always tell students to like feel before you listen. So like if we're trying to learn like a specific technique, like what I was talking about earlier, if we're trying to learn like how to use our mixed voice, just think about how it feels when you get to that spot as opposed to what it sounds like, because it's the same idea of sound doesn't sound the same as I'm hearing it. Like my voice doesn't sound the same as I'm hearing it versus how you're hearing it. So I think feeling is another big thing that people don't talk about when they're singing. They think just about like how does it sound, but feeling is like probably even more important than sound.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I didn't think of it that way. How about I wanted to ask you this kind of off the wall, a little bit funnier. What if you had to pick an album that was the only album you could listen to for the rest of your life? What album is it?
Ooh, it changes from month to month, but this month it is Sufjan Stevens' Carrie and Lowell. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that.
It's so good. It's that very like, it's like folky sort of, but Sufjan Stevens is a really cool artist. Like you should check him out. Because he does a lot of other stuff.
I gotta figure out how to spell that respectfully.
Sufjan, I think it's Sufjan and then Stevens.
Okay.
So, yeah, he's so cool though. And what I like about him as an artist, like before I talk about his music, is that he like started his own label with his dad when he was 25, and that was when he first like I can't remember if it was his first or second album, but that was sort of when like he put any of his music into the world. Oh, wow. And I think it's just like really inspirational, and sort of like I don't have to put like a time limit on when I release my stuff or how I get it done or whatever, because he's super successful, and
Yeah.
he waited till he was like 25 to even release anything. Yeah, and he's so cool though. Like he's another one, not like Jacob Collier. His stuff's more, to me, like more easy listening. Like I can like listen to it and not think about all the theory stuff happening. But he does super super cool stuff, like with genre mixing and like adding electronic elements, which is really cool. And yeah, lately it's just been Carrie and Lowell on repeat. So
Wow. Yeah, I think it's crazy too, like the sort of the ability to do stuff on your own like that independently, you know, with him and his dad.
Yeah.
Does his dad do music too then?
I don't know the exact story. I read like an article about him just to figure out what the album was about.
Yeah.
And I think like I can't remember if his dad does music too or not. All I know
But he's
is
involved
they
in
like,
the label basically.
they started it. His like mom passed, and so that's why he like wrote this last album. But yeah.
And so crazy too at 25. That makes me hopeful, you know,
Yeah.
as well. But that's the thing too. I wanted to talk to you about a little bit was this idea. I think it's more so worse in specifically America is what I've learned. But like we have like this obsession with like prodigies, like child prodigy, like the fact that you or I have not accomplished something gargantuan with our art, and we're 23, 24 years old. You know, you're a failure. We're older. I am a high school diploma older than most pop stars right now that are like famous. And that's kind of crazy to think about. But it's like, and there's this weird pressure of like, if you're not by the time you're 18 or 20, like, then what are you doing?
Yeah, and
you
it's
know?
hard to just even get yourself to keep going because you're like, what's the point at this point?
Yeah, well, it's like, I mean, even someone like, I remember when Billie Eilish first came out, I was like, damn, this is incredible.
That's exactly who I thought of.
And I'm like, this is incredible. And now Olivia Rodrigo is huge. She's got some really cool stuff. And it's like, you know, these pop stars. And you think about like when Justin Bieber got famous and these people, and you're like, shit. You know, so I mean, it's good that, especially in your case, you found somebody that like is a similar, like has figured it out at a later age. And that's someone too, even somebody that I look up to on like an independent music side of things is Russ. And he didn't blow up till he was 24. So like, that's when he like actually was making enough money to be like, oh, okay, I can do this. Yeah. And I think that's really cool. And I mean, I don't have much more time before I'd be hitting that one. So
no, but I think like, don't even put a time limit on it, or at least for myself, that's kind of like what I've been trying to do, because then I think it also affects my music, and like I just feel frustrated, and then I bring that sort of frustration into my music writing, which like you don't want. I think just like being okay with where you're at, you know, and whatever that looks like, as long as you're like happy with it and like the music fulfills you. Obviously, like you got to make money, right? But I think just like being okay with that, I think it's definitely like a hard thing to like accept. And to like even continue moving forward knowing. But I think what I did is like seek out artists who didn't make it until they were later, or until they were older, because I watched like some like funny, or it was funny to me, but it was like some TikTok video of some guy talking about how like pop songs in the 80s were all of these middle-aged people, like all of the like,
I saw the same TikTok.
all the big hits were like all
Phil Collins, and
and I'm like, I didn't think about that, but like look at that, and like, and look how iconic that music still is today. Like I fuck with Phil Collins hard. Like his music's so awesome. It's
amazing.
so awesome. You know what I mean? And it's like super like universal. Everyone loves it. Like if somebody says they hate Phil Collins, I don't believe you. You know,
well, you're trash
like,
music
you're
taste.
Trash, right?
You don't.
Yeah. And I feel like just looking at that, I think like it, like our society has just gotten so used to like instant gratification that's why people like want these like prodigies. But like the music, not to say that, because I love Billie Eilish too. I think her music is amazing. Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about the fact that she also like was in there like producing her own music and like actually creating all of her own music, where like a lot of pop artists who are still like, who I still respect in their own right, who still like have amazing like voices, don't write their own music. And I feel like that's another thing to like just like, I guess like keep me going, is like, okay, well, it's gonna take me more time because it's just like me sitting in a studio by myself, you know. Like
I'm wearing all these different hats. They have somebody wearing that hat.
And it like takes time, and I think it's just like being okay with that, or like faking being okay with it until you make it, because I'm not okay with it all the time. But
that's something that I definitely, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm like always
I'm
super
always
excited that I'm broke as fuck making these records, but it's
period.
like, you know, but it's something I was actually, who was I talking to about this? I was talking to somebody like maybe a month or so ago, and they were like, they come down to the studio and they were checking out this room that we're in, and then I've got the studio where I record all my music, and they were like looking at everything. They're like, man, you spent a lot of money on this. Like, what if it doesn't work out? I was like, okay.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
I love doing it, you know? And so,
that's
like,
the point.
and,
Like,
but it wasn't like, so I was really down at that
Yeah.
time, and I had that conversation, and like, just being in like the opposition of this person made me realize, like, no, but I love this shit. Like, if it never works out, if this podcast never amounts to anything, if none of my music amounts to anything, it's like, I
Yeah.
love doing it. So
Yeah.
it's like, if you love playing video games or whatever, that's like your thing that you do when you get home from work. Like, you're going to keep doing that. Like, you're not, some people aren't trying to become Twitch famous or do whatever. They just love this
they just
game,
like doing it. Yeah.
you know, or they just love like hanging out with their kid, whatever it is. Like, you're going to just do what you love. And so, like, when I realized it and looked at it that way, I was like, yeah, it doesn't really matter, dude.
Yeah.
Like, people spend a whole lot more on a whole lot less.
Yeah.
So like, if you have something that you're passionate about, like, regardless if there's some child prodigy that is
Yeah.
making you feel terrible about your position right now, I wouldn't let that, let that discourage you from continuing on.
For sure. For sure.
Because
Yeah.
it can be toxic. It can be toxic and stuff.
I totally I feel that way, like with music, or not music in general, but no, actually music in general. I feel like it's just like, it's good, or it's like I hate music. Like, I love music one day and then I just hate it the other day because of that. But I think, like, for my own self, I just try to start listening to artists that like aren't as well known. Again, not that I don't, because I love, like, I've been listening to Chromatica so much because, like, we're gonna go see Lady Gaga, and I love it. Like, I think she's an amazing artist, but like, I try to actively seek out artists that are less like known, just to like be supportive in that way, and to like be like, okay, at least there's somebody doing this for them, so that hopefully by the time I get to this point, there's somebody that's gonna do this for me, you know.
And well, you gotta think too from an inspirational standpoint, like, when it comes to people like Lady Gaga or anybody like that, like, the music, the gatekeepers already decided that is cool.
Yeah.
But like, there's plenty of people that are maybe in a position that she was in before somebody opened a door for her. That
100%.
like the thing with the music industry is you're not shit until everybody thinks you're cool, or until whoever it is. And there's less gatekeepers now with like social media and stuff like that, but there still are.
Which is kind of sad. That like, that's like what music is like, because I feel like music, like in like Africa, my jazz professor like gave this like really cool lecture on like the origins of jazz, just talking about like what music meant in Africa. It wasn't a form of entertainment. It was literally how they communicated, and just like how they went through daily life. Like, there would be different like sort of like rhythmic passages for different things that they were supposed to be doing. And I think that's like just so cool, and that's, to me, that's the essence of music. Is it's just because it's literally all around us, again, like cheese, but like you can go outside and like there's music.
Every noise is in a key, playing a note, if you were to look at it that way.
And it's like annoying that now it's just like monetized to like what somebody says is cool. I'm like, but like, you know, and I'm not into all types. I'm not even saying, because there's some music that I don't like. I just personally, but that's the point, is that like every person has their own preferences. So how can one person just be like, this is worthy of like making money? So you know what I mean?
And usually there's some gain for them in doing so. And so it's interesting too, even, you know, public perception, especially now, maybe more so than ever. Yes, there are gatekeepers that are now gone, all this behind the scenes shit that is a little bit more transparent now. But there's still a lot of that, first off, a lot of behind the scenes shit that's messed up. But the other thing too is where now it's like, if you don't have a certain follower account or on the account, if you don't have that, if you don't have the blue check mark, if you don't have a cosign from some other big artist in the same lane, like, why the fuck am I gonna check it out, bro? Yeah. Like, I get it from the consumer standpoint, where it's like, I want to listen to music that I know I'm gonna like. Yeah. Who the fuck are you? I have all these artists that I already enjoy. Yeah. Why should I waste, like, my time is precious? Why should I check this thing out? You know, and so I get that point of it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't make it awesome for artists.
Yeah,
you know?
it stinks. But I guess that's like the game you play if you want to do music.
Exactly.
Like, it is what it is.
It's just a necessary evil you have to endure. What prevents you? I know we kind of talked a little bit about having a toxic relationship with music, kind of going back and forth. What prevents you from creating? What are hurdles that stop you?
I think
that get in your way.
Lately, it goes back to like education, and getting more education, I feel like was good, but also like a hurdle, because then I got to this point where like I would just sit down to write, and I was like, no, that's not complicated enough. That doesn't have like a seventh in it. That doesn't have blah, blah, blah. And then it was just like, I would just end up with nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that was like the most frustrating thing for me, like probably pretty recently. I feel like once I graduated and just like, well, I guess I'm still in school, but like once I graduated from undergrad, I think that was the hardest thing, was just remembering that all of the things that I've learned are sort of like in a toolbox and I can take it out when I want it, you know, but
Yeah.
like at the end of the day, I need to just like let things happen organically, because that's how I've always written. And I think for some people, like writing mathematically does work.
Yeah.
I feel like I've met like a ton of people at school who write that way, and that's just like what works for them. And they write really cool, like avant-garde pieces that are so complicated that I could never write.
Mhm.
And they love that, and that speaks to them. But I think it was like realizing that that's not me. I wanted to be like that person that like always had like a formula of how to write a song and like knew exactly what notes. But
Yeah.
like when I had to like come to this point where I was like, okay, like before I knew any of this stuff, how did I write? And it was just like me fiddling, not literally knowing nothing, knowing no keys on like the piano, what the keys were.
Yeah.
Just
And-
like fiddling until I liked something.
Yeah, it basically, I guess to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, it sounds like, you know, if you've got a keyboard here of your ideas and whatnot, that could, infinite possibilities of things could come from that. You got to a point where you had so many tools that the toolbox was overflowing, and the
Yeah.
wrenches are on the key. You can't
Yeah.
even play the keys because they're covered in tools.
Yeah.
And so I think like something that maybe people that aren't necessarily just specifically in music could take away from this is like people, relationships, skills that you've learned, they all like serve purposes in a way to help you be the person you want to be, right? So it's like,
100%.
you know, even my vocal teacher, when I was first getting acquainted with her, like I had to send her some of my stuff that I'd worked on, and she'd made some comments about the way I write certain things and like whatever, and this thing wasn't for her and blah, 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 blah. And that's what I'm paying her to do.
Yeah.
Like I got really down for a day. I was like, damn, she just wrote, this is one of my favorite songs of mine.
Yeah.
Like so I sent her a couple of my ones. I'm like, oh, these are the good ones.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know, whatever. And yeah, to hear her say that, I'm like, damn, but this is a professional singing coach. She's worked on whatever. That's what I'm going to her for. It doesn't mean that this art is not worth anything.
No,
You know,
100%,
I need to take that for what it is. It's the same thing with anything else in life. If you've got a, you know, how do I want to put this? Like if you have maybe a boss or a friend of yours that, or maybe an older sibling, whatever, that has their own business, and you're going to them for business advice, and they're shredding whatever it is you're doing. It doesn't mean everything they're saying is perfectly right, but you went to them for that, you know. So take that in as what it is. If your heart still tells you to do whatever it was that they were shredding, do that, because that's you.
Yeah, it's just about getting like
But
as much information as you can and then doing what you will with it.
Yeah, don't not listen to people.
Yeah.
You know, listen to
You're
everybody.
not saying just don't listen
to
anybody,
people,
yeah.
but at the end of the day, if you look in the mirror and what you're doing, or you're listening to your music, or you're looking at the painting you've just done, or whatever art it is, if you look at it and you're like, this looks like what they told me to make and not what I wanted to make, you have a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's something that needs to be thought of when you're getting into that. So
I think it was like getting like just realizing that like that I don't, because I got super into like she's a famous like jazz artist. Her name's Esperanza Spalding. She's super cool. She does like really cool stuff, and like her latest album is called 12 Little Spells, and it's like about the 12 chakras, and I'm not super into that stuff, but she did a song for like each chakra and like corresponding body part, and it was just so cool and like just like far out, and I was
very
like
abstract.
I want to and she like and she's also like she's a jazz musician who like, I mean, jazz musicians are just crazy, like the stuff that they know, and then she like was able to use all of that complicated stuff and just like create it in a way that was also like I was able to understand it, like, or like I feel like anybody that just heard that album would be able to like understand where she was coming from, even if they didn't understand the technical aspects of things. And I think I got in this mode where I wanted things to like be so complicated technically and then still sound like the way that her music sounded, and like some stuff I feel like maybe I feel that way about, but it was like stuff that I wasn't thinking about. I wasn't thinking about the technical stuff. I just like wrote it because I liked it. And I think like that was like a really hard thing, going back to hurdles, but like just a hard thing to get over, like that I didn't need to have all of this crazy theory stuff.
You're
like,
putting
in my
you went from
music.
being in a box where you're like didn't have any tools,
Yeah,
so
I
you
knew
were limited in
nothing.
what you
Yeah.
could do
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you didn't have the tools to do everything, to then putting yourself in a new shinier box where it was like, I have to do the stuff that fits with these tools, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
And you had to kind of find a
And I
balance.
just wanted. I was like, I was looking for some sort of like, I guess like validation from like my peers or my professors that like, wow, that was so complicated. Good
Oh, yeah.
job. And like, cool. Like if somebody, you know what I mean? And I just wanted people to like hear it and be like, wow, she did something complicated and like, I don't even know.
You needed the ego
Yeah, but,
stroked
like,
a bit.
it
That's
does-
the ego talking.
Yeah,
about it.
yeah, yeah.
it's
And then
not-
I feel like but then that becomes my most inauthentic stuff that I even like the least.
yeah.
And which was a good realization to make, but just like annoying because I'm like, I spent so much time on like so much of my time trying to do that, and then it was like stuff that just didn't sound like me. I was
Yeah.
like, this just doesn't sound.
You're
not
trying to
good.
impress somebody that you're not even sure, you know,
Yeah.
if you like them. You know,
Mhm.
it's like, do I even like
Yeah,
this music that I
actually,
make? You know,
yeah,
and it's the same
yeah.
thing when you know, if somebody meets somebody new and you're trying to impress them and
Yeah.
you
Do
turn
I
out you're
actually
like,
like this?
do I
person?
even like you? Did you ever? And
Mhm.
I struggle with that sometimes too, where I'm
Yeah.
like, why am I trying to be whatever the fuck I think I'm trying to be for this person? I don't even
Yeah.
know if I like them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, like, and
Mhm.
so it's an interesting thing. We are over the hour mark. I wanted to ask you, can you give me 3 artists that maybe people don't know about
Yeah.
that inspire you, or that you just want to say like, shout out, these people are dope, and then I gotta follow up for
Yeah.
that. So
Leanne LaHaves, Sufjan Stevens, who I already mentioned, and Dodie. I feel like she's a lesser known person. Yeah.
now 3 pop artists or
Yeah.
people that are super popular, any genre that people would know. 3 people that maybe inspire you that in that lane.
Jacob Collier, Lady Gaga, and we'll throw in Beyonce because I love. Who doesn't love Beyonce?
Yeah, Beyonce is pretty awesome.
We love her.
You can't.
Yeah,
You can't go
you
wrong with
cannot.
Beyonce. Now, you, to my knowledge, don't currently have anything out on streaming services
No,
yet, right? Which is
no.
the name of the game now,
Yeah,
sadly,
yeah.
in the music industry. When, if, can people expect it? Or
My goal is by the time I finish my master's program, which will be next year, next year in August, to have an album. That's my thesis. What I want my thesis to be. So I'd like to like have a full album out. I have like all of the songs written I need for it, but it's just a matter of producing and mastering and then putting them out and advertising and all of that fun stuff.
yeah. So
Yeah.
for the music you've currently, I know you, because you've released some stuff on social media and
Mhm.
stuff like snippets and things. Are these in places that people can go check out? Do you have a
Yeah, my Facebook page.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
you want to plug the Facebook page?
Yeah, it's just Kalyn Janae.
Okay.
Yeah,
There we go. You
check
guys
it
go check it
out.
out. No, the latest stuff you posted was really good.
Thank you.
It was really
thanks.
good. Now, like I said, we're at the hour mark. Do you have any questions for me before we end up wrapping?
No, it was really great talking to you,
It was,
though.
that was great.
We got to catch up about more stuff. I feel like I was
Yeah.
telling Johnny I haven't seen you since his party, and then before that I haven't seen you in McKenna since high school.
Yeah, years,
Yeah.
literal years.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we'll have to catch up about some other stuff as well, and I'm sure we'll have you back on sometime, and we won't. Maybe who knows? We'll be promoting your album.
Yeah, maybe.
That would be super cool.
That's the goal, anyways. So I'll let you know.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you giving
Mhm.
us your time and coming on the
Mhm.
show and breaking down a lot of this technical stuff when it comes
Yeah.
to music and learning it, and as well as teaching it, because as someone myself and I have other artists that watch the show, something we're curious about.
Yeah.
You know, everybody wants to be able to sing.
Yeah.
You know, it gets singing in the shower is cool, and
Yeah.
most people that's all we need. You know, is
Mhm.
hear the little bit of the reverb in the bathroom,
Yeah,
and we're
yeah,
like, oh my god, I'm
period.
good. But
Mhm.
for some of us that want to further it, it's cool to hear someone like yourself is so knowledgeable speak on
Yeah.
it. So thank you.
Of course. Thanks
And,
for having me.
I also want to say thank you to everybody who tuned into this while it's premiering here on Monday. If you're watching this days after, thank you as well. Or you're listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you are, thank you. Appreciate you. Also want to say a quick shout out to our patrons. They should be up on the screen right now. If you guys are interested in getting behind the scenes content to all the music videos we do, breakdown on how I mix, write, record, master all my songs. We have a series over there on that, as well as exclusive podcasts, extra footage from vlogs, all that good stuff. And you can support the channel for as little as $1. So go over to patreon.com/Darren Rita to do that. And this has been quick shout out to Kenosha Auto Insurance, also for sponsoring this episode. And this has been the 142nd episode of the dtalks podcast. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.